The bench was facing the wrong direction. It sat beside a cracked shelter with faded route numbers still clinging to the glass, positioned toward a road that had been empty for days. Dust had gathered along the curb, and dry leaves collected in the corners of the shelter like they had been pushed there by buses that no longer came. We moved along the sidewalk in a slow, deliberate line, scanning storefronts and upper windows. The road beside us was wide and open, the kind of place that normally carried noise, movement, and people rushing between destinations. Now it just carried the sound of our boots and the faint rattle of loose metal from the shelter roof. Our instructions were simple: clear the stretch of road, check the transport stop and the surrounding shops, maintain movement, but avoid rushing open ground. Open roads feel exposed in a different way than alleys. There is nowhere to disappear if something starts. We approached the bus stop from the side, using the line of shuttered stores as cover. I took position near the corner of a pharmacy with its metal gate pulled halfway down. Another teammate covered the road while two others moved toward the shelter itself. Everything stayed quiet until they reached the bench. A sharp crack echoed from across the street, followed by two more controlled shots that shattered the glass panel of the shelter. The team near the bench dropped behind the concrete base instantly, while the rest of us spread out along storefront entrances and parked vehicles. I leaned against the pharmacy wall, scanning the second and third floors across the road. Curtains shifted slightly in one apartment window, then a barrel appeared just long enough to fire again before disappearing. We returned fire carefully, keeping pressure on the window while maintaining awareness of the ground-level shops beneath it. The street magnified every sound, each shot bouncing between buildings and making distance harder to judge. Then movement appeared closer than expected. A metal shutter across the street lifted just a few inches, and shots came from the darkness behind it, low and fast. The angle forced us to split focus again, covering both the upper apartment and the shop front while staying behind whatever cover we could find. The bus stop bench sat in the middle of it all, untouched but completely exposed. Radio updates stayed calm and brief. Hold positions. Watch. Cross angles. Wait for support movement through the buildings behind them. I shifted toward a parked car that gave me a better line toward the shop shutter. The windshield was already cracked, spiderweb patterns spreading across the glass, but it gave enough cover to lean out and fire short bursts toward the gap under the shutter, forcing it closed again. Across the road, the upper window fired less frequently now, each shot slower and more uncertain. Moments later, distant sounds echoed from inside the apartment building, muffled but unmistakable. The pressure from inside was reaching them. The shop resistance faded shortly after. One last uneven burst came from behind the shutter. Then silence rolled across the street again, heavy and sudden. We held positions longer than felt natural, scanning windows, rooftops, and doorways. Dust drifted slowly through the open road, catching sunlight that slipped between the buildings. When we finally moved to clear the bus stop, the shattered glass crunched softly under our boots. The route numbers were still visible through the cracks, listing destinations that suddenly felt far removed from the street around us. I paused for a second near the bench while the others checked the shelter interior. The seat was worn smooth in the middle from years of people waiting, probably checking watches or just watching traffic pass. As we stepped back onto the sidewalk and continued down the road, I glanced over my shoulder once. The bench faced the empty street exactly as it was meant to, waiting for something that might not return anytime soon. That stop stayed in my mind because it represented movement, routine, and people passing through ordinary moments. Seeing it frozen in place, untouched but surrounded by silence, made the street feel heavier than any noise that had filled it earlier. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.